Yeah. Have you been doing any cool stuff lately you want to mention? Any cool projects?
Um, any cool projects? Oh yeah. So I try. You want to talk about the Copilot because we're talking about
Yeah. Have
Copilots
you tried
today.
anything new lately, Nick?
Yes. Like, oh yeah. So Copilot is so last week. Come on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Power Platform Boost podcast, your timely source of Power Platform news and updates with your host, Ulrika Ackerbeck and Nick Dolman. This week is kind of a crazy week, right? Copilot all over the news. So today we'll talk most about Copilot and we'll give you all the news and updates from the big announcements last week. And Nick, you have kind of a summary on all the new stuff that was announced last week, right?
Yeah. All right. So hold on, everybody. We're going to quickly go through it, but then we're going to after dive in and we'll talk more about it. So Microsoft is going all in with a whole bunch of AI announcements. In case you hadn't heard, so if you've heard if you didn't know what the word Copilot meant before last week, you definitely know this week. So a lot of things have happened. It was on March 15th. That's last week. OpenAI announced GTP 4, which apparently uses more data, more computation power over previous versions of GPT. It's unlike the Fast and Furious series. You don't have to go back to GTP 1 to GPT 3 to figure out everything to catch up. You could dive right in right away into GTP 4. And then the following day, when that was already huge news, there was a big online event on March 16th, and Microsoft released a whole big list of other co-pilots to both Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform, already adding to those AI-driven co-pilots that are already existing in GitHub. So if you didn't get a chance, we have the live stream link in the notes. I would highly recommend you check it out. Demonstrate on the live stream where the AI enhancements to Office tools like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and of course Outlook. So if you soon be able to be using Copilot to shorten and summarize those long-winded emails to your boss and to your team, and you can actually begin to make that boring PowerPoint deck actually presentable. Just a big shout out to my Microsoft colleagues. And anyways, the other big news that everybody is talking about is corporate vice president Charles Lamanna was spotted wearing a suit jacket. Charles, where did the hoodie go? And then earlier in the week, you might have heard that Microsoft announced the Dynamics 365 Copilot to help you with your customer engagement, sales, and service activities. You'll be able to use Dynamics 365 Copilot to help with your sales processes, generate emails, communications with your sales prospects. And on the customer service side, agents will be able to use Copilots to parse emails, quickly generate responses. So the next time I call my bank, are they going to say, let me put you on hold. I need to check with my Copilot? And then, of course, Power Virtual Agents. They have a new conversation booster. Love the name. You're going to be able to configure your chatbot to pull information from your website, internal knowledge base articles, and other resources to allow questions from your to kind of get your customers to ask better questions or get them better answers. And that's going to save you a ton of time if you've ever gone through and trying to add all those entities and topics to PVA. Now we can just get AI to do it, take some of those tedious tasks out of the way. Of course, AI Builder has also been powered up by the OpenAI services. You're able to build Power Apps and Power Automate flows to summarize large volumes of text from emails, reports, and use it to generate new content. I just wonder, how long is this podcast going to last if AI can replace us? I hope not. So anyways, in case you haven't figured it out, artificial intelligence, next big thing. Everybody should be ramping up and keep listening to our podcast, Power Platform Boost. And we're going to get a lot more updates and discussion on today and many more weeks to come on artificial intelligence, co-pilots, and all the other Power Platform goodness. So, Ulrika, all this co-pilot
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy, isn't it?
it's amazing. It's cool, but I think, I'm not too worried about my job yet. I think we're going to need humans for a while. But before we dive into
Yeah.
that, this is like our second official episode, and we had a lot of great response from our first episode, and just want to basically kind of reach out to a few people. Vivian Voss was, I think, one of the first people that kind of responded on Twitter that she was looking forward to our episodes. Of course, Megan Walker and Lisa Crosby, they gave their endorsement as well, their blessing, kind of taking sort of what they did. Of course, we're going to do our own unique spin on this. We're not copying completely what they're doing. We couldn't, even if we tried. And a lot of the other folks that have been reaching out
Yeah,
greatly appreciate it. So yeah,
absolutely. And we got
and
on
hey,
Neil Benson's list as well. I think that was just made the list. He
just
announced this and very good compilation as well of the podcast that he listens to, and then we just exactly made the cut. I like that.
I don't even think we were published in all the directories yet, and Neil gave us a shout out. So that was pretty good. So if we had left it a day or two, we might have
We
missed the list on that.
really
So
appreciate that. Thank you, Neil.
yes. And hey, how you doing,
Yeah,
Melodica? Haven't we're planning this every 2 weeks, but so how you been?
I've been good. A lot of things going on. A very busy time these couple of weeks. I feel like the each week is an endless end-to-end meeting, back-to-back kind of thing. So yeah, really busy. What about you?
Yeah, a lot of the same, a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the meetings to talk about the work that I should be doing the work for. Um, we have a couple of these at Microsoft sometime, but it's all good. It's all good. We're moving along, getting new documentation out the door because there's new features and new stuff coming along. So yeah, all good. But I'm happy we're recording today and moving forward with this podcast. Really excited about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, me too. And also, we got some feedback or some shout outs on the last episode. We asked people in the community what was their first time, their first app or their first website. We had so many cool answers. So, from Lindsay Shelton, for instance, her dad's front page, she built an Archie Comics fan site, and that's very cool. We got some other
So
people here.
yeah, hold on for the Archie comic. Did you read Archie comics when you were younger,
No,
or
no
you haven't?
reference. Sorry, no.
You have no reference to Archie comics. Okay, because I was going to ask you if Archie should be with Betty or Veronica, but we can
Is
maybe
that
our
the one
audience.
on the roof and the Snoopy?
No, that's Peanuts.
Oh, right, that was Peanuts. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
not on
No.
my radar. Sorry.
All right, we're gonna have to have
There's some Commodore stuff here. I think you should do that one as well.
yeah. Palmer he talked about true building stuff on the Commodore 64, or actually no, the Commodore VIC 20, which is the predecessor to the 64, and then also the Atari 800 XL. And it's funny, he talked about typing in code listings for magazines, and I did this. I remember getting, I think it was like Byte magazine or something, and then they'd have pages. And if it was basic code, then it was good. You could learn from it. But a lot of times it was just machine code, and you had to type in all these hex values to build a tool or an app. And this is slightly before you're able to download it from the net. And I think if you really wanted to, you could send away to get the floppy disks. But yeah, it's kind of now I'm really showing my age. But yeah, thanks, Paul, for sharing that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And from Christine, I always have a hard time with your last name. Sorry if I'm butchering it. Koldeneski. I hope it's right. She created what I think most of us did as well, the basic website about Justin Bieber and Zac Efron. The fangirl crush website. I think we've all had, probably you as well, Nick, right? The teen crush. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I have a story about Justin Bieber we'll share for another time.
Save some
Fellow
of the good
Canadian.
stuff. Absolutely. And then Chris
And
Huntingford, sorry, did you have?
no,
Nope, sorry. Chris Huntingford also happened to make a video of a timesheet app he wrote in 2002 and still had the manual source code. I love that. And of course, our good friend, Franco Musso. which is probably going to be our version of the Amy Holden for this podcast, for those of you who listen to the podcast, had a site to help him learn Spanish. And that there's an app for that, isn't there? Today?
Yeah, there is, but he was ahead of the game. Like, yeah, I use Duolingo. I'm trying to learn French. Been at it for over 400 and some days, and I still, mon français est pas bon, but I'll figure it. Maybe I should just switch to Norwegian or something.
Yeah, maybe that would be cool.
Cool.
All right.
And speaking of Franco, Franco actually asked us specifically to mention this. And
of
this
course,
is
you do whatever Franco says.
Well, partially, but the thing is, this is good because we're holding Franco accountable because he has big plans, and so do we all. So he said, so basically, but then we did ask, if you're doing something cool with the Power Platform, let us know about it. And he has stated publicly that he is going to rebuild the Scottish Summit site using Power Pages, but in public. And I think how it's going to work, he's going to do this, I think, on Teams. He's going to have a team meeting. And as he works on it, I kind of, hopefully he's going to explain what he's doing as opposed to just diving and coding. But I think that's very brave and very bold. I'm not a great, I don't like people looking over my shoulder if I'm coding or doing stuff. But this could be a really cool way to learn, a good way of collaboration. And he might be actually the smartest one of the bunch. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to build this, but hey, everybody join in and watch. And then this way, if he's stuck on something, all of a sudden he has a bunch of people looking over his shoulder and say, hey, try this, do that. So it's a very unique way of getting I like to call them community co-pilots engaged to help him build that out.
I think those are the bravest ones, right? The ones that does the live demo stuff. And we actually I have Power Meetup, kind of a meetup in Norway every quarter about Power Platform in general. And we had, so Ga King Chi he just added, did a demo where he added OpenAI to Teams, so you could have your own chatbot in Teams, and he did it live, and it didn't work. And he was sitting there in this meetup and having all these community champions, listening in and watching him try to fix this live and giving all these ideas and tips. This is not working. Your expression, you forgot an M in your expression, and you wrote something wrong. And he just stuck with it. He didn't quit, and he got through it. And that's amazing. I love that, to see people not giving up.
Not giving up.
No, and I think also Franco is going to have a talk about this as well at some conference coming up. So if you want to see him do some live demoing, then I think maybe Scottish Summit would be the right place to go to see if
I think he's right. Yeah. And the other thing we have to remind, so if you're going to participate in this, is make sure he hits the record button, because he's notorious saying, hey, I'm going to do a live thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, shoot, I forget to hit the record button. So make sure he does that, so he doesn't have to backtrack later.
Yeah, and not to have this whole episode be about Franco Musso, but he does something that I really like. So when you read his blog post, you will see that he does something that I wish more people would do. When he starts off, he starts with a problem and how he would initially start solving it. And as he encounters roadblocks along the way, he will actually document and write to those blockers as well, and how he re-engineered the solution to work around it. And I think that's something that more people should do, to actually teach how to troubleshoot and how to get on with your issue once you hit the roadblock. So kudos to you, Franco, for doing that.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Have you been doing any cool stuff lately you want to mention?
Any cool projects? Oh, yeah. So I try. You want to talk about the Copilot? Because we're talking about Copilots today.
Have you tried anything new lately, Nick?
Yes. So Copilot is so last week. Come on.
No, but it is actually. We've had this for a while. And that is something that they also talked about in the announcements as well, is that we've had this in the Power Platform, and we've used so many tools, and we watch Netflix, and AI has been all around for so long, and we don't really recognize it because it's been in the background. What's happened now, what happened last week, is that it's actually coming out of the shadows of, and into our hands as something that we actively need to or can interact with as a co-pilot, instead of it being on, like Charles would say, autopilot, or yeah.
So what you're trying to tell me is the very fact that, when we were looking to buy a brand new fridge, and with all my Google searching, the fact that these ads that started showing up in like my Facebook wasn't a coincidence.
Oh
There was
no.
something happening.
Yeah, and the yeah, exactly, and to the point where I find it kind of creepy. You mentioned a friend on the phone. Yeah, we're looking into buying a new boat this summer, and then all of a sudden, I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing that it's coming out of its shadows.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did try the new Power Apps Copilot. I thought, hey, everybody's talking about it. I know you have to you have to sign up to get the preview. And this is the other thing I found. I guess I find annoying is you need to have a United States based environment, and it's all going to be in US based English, which I get it. I mean, this is where Microsoft is headquartered. And it's not that big of a deal because everybody around the world can create a developer. When you create a developer environment, you can specify where you want it located, and you can specify the United States. I think in most cases you can do this. So that was the kind of the first. I mean, for me, obviously I work for Microsoft and I have access to some of this stuff. So that's how I was able to play with it. But if I wanted to do it on my own tenant, I have to make sure I spin up a US based environment. And there was a few other previews I wanted to try, and I was like, wanted to turn them on my tenant. Me being in Canada, we have our own data center here. It's like, I'm sorry, not available in your environment. So that's the first thing. So if you do want to sign up for these previews and stuff, then yeah, you're going to have to, get an environment of some sorts spun up in the U.S. environments, or what they call the North Americans, which really is basically U.S. So in that respect, I mean, it is what it is. Of course, it will roll out everywhere else in different languages and that type of thing in the fullness of time, as we like to say in Microsoft. So it was pretty cool. So basically, you just go and you say, "Hey, I want to build an app." So you say, I want to build an app to keep track of something, or manage something, or something like that. And you just type that in, and then it begins to generate. Now it starts with a table. Doesn't start with multiple tables. So this is again where we as Power Platform architects are now going to have to put on our architect hats and do a proper data model. And that's not to say AI can't help with that. And I've used Chat GTP before. I've said, hey, Chat GTP, give me a data model to create like a member management system. And it will actually break out to say, oh, you want to create a table for members, you want to create a table for payments, want to create a table for renewals and those types of things. But right now, those type of features, and I'm not sure if they'll come in, I'm pretty sure something like that will eventually come in the data modeling part. But right now it's very basic. It creates the table and it will create a few fields. That already beginning to save time, because if you've ever gone into, the Power Apps and you started creating a table, you got to create a field, you got to click, you got to give it a name, you got to give it, what data type it is, and the other parameters, click OK, and then go to create your next field, and then your next field. And that's a lot of clicking. So this is where the AI is great, because it can actually do a lot of that for you. So it's almost like you have a June.
Yeah, just thinking about solution awareness as well. Can you tell it to put it in the solution, or is it solution unaware for starters?
For starters, it looks to be solution unaware. And I was thinking that I kind of want to say, hey, create this app, but create it in this solution, or create a dedicated solution for this app as well. Which I'm sure also will come, because solutions are very important in the Power Platform for, ALM purposes. A few weird things I found. It kept renaming the table because I kept adding new fields, and it was a flat table, but I said, oh, whoa, I want a field to track this. I want a field to track this. Give me a date field for this. All of a sudden, I noticed the table name would change, because the AI was thinking I'm sort of in the process of changing my mind. And I kind of went back like, no, all those previous fields I created, I don't want you to get rid of them. I want you to keep adding them. So that was kind of weird. So I was kind of had to backpedal a little bit when I'm building out my table. And then I wasn't able to create related tables. Like I said, going back to this data model, not through the AI anyway. I could do this once the app is generated. it takes time, but it takes a bit getting used to. And then it's kind of almost as if I was telling getting a junior dev, it's their first day. Well, give me something to do. Okay, well, create these tables for me. That's kind of how I felt like the AI was.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah,
give you some busy work to save me a bit of time. But then
absolutely.
you'd have to go back and clean it up and fix it up and, model it or, make it yours. So it definitely
Yeah.
will save time, but you have to, and you also have to know what it is you want to track and how you want your data structured.
But maybe if you would use ChatGTP or something else to give you a suggestion for what your data model should be, and then you could export that into an Excel file and import it as a data model and would create all those tables and relate them and do all the stuff for you, that would save you much more time and it would be an old school way of doing it.
Yes, absolutely. But I think that is something that will come in future versions. And again, I can't say for sure, but this is just logically has how I could see it help out. And then once you've gone through and created this whole table, the other great thing is created sample data automatically for you, sort of based on what you described it, which is pretty cool because I find something that's very tedious when you're creating applications is like, okay, now I have to create a bunch of test records and a bunch of test data. And then, of course, if it gets manipulated, you have to backtrack and rename or rechange the dates and stuff. So that was really cool.
Another thing
And
that
then
we need the juniors to do, can you please fill this out for us? Can you create 10 records in this table?
well, that's actually also something I've used ChatGTP for. Like for some of my demos, like, you do demos, right? It's sort of like, so I've actually asked ChatGTP before. I said, can you give me a CSV file of, manufacturing companies, including the city name, the province name, and, a fake phone number. And it will actually generate that, which is cool. Then I can actually take that and upload it into my tables for doing demos. So I don't have to sit there and type a bunch of test data.
Yeah, do the
So,
same thing actually. Yeah.
yeah. And again, it's like we're already using AI in a lot of these things. And then finally, or not finally, the next step was to create an app. So I pressed the button. I was expecting it to ask me or even decide if it was going to create a Canvas app or a model driven app, but it went just ahead and created a Canvas app. And I'm like, okay, I suppose. What if my use case is a lot more geared to creating a model driven app? And that's where I'm kind of thinking, again, I'm hoping this will get better. So we have a little bit more choices or at least some guidance that could say, hey, based on this data structure, we feel a model driven app is a better choice. Or based on this data structure, a Canvas app makes a better option. So that, I think that's something you could get better about. And then this is also similar to something I think it was in Teams, in the apps for Teams, where you have your table. It could create a bit of an interface. So what it will do, it'll create create a couple screens. The first screen is it actually embeds its own Copilot within your app, which is really cool. So you can start asking your app using the Copilot its own, hey, tell me of all the data that I've entered, give me some trends, give me some analysis. What's my biggest sale last month? Or if I'm doing it to track something, you can just ask questions on on basically on your own data. So that's pretty neat. And then that's a feature you can actually go back and add back to your existing Canvas apps already. That control will be there, so you can retroactively add that. So that's pretty cool. But then for the rest, it added a gallery, added a form, and then we're sort of almost back into our regular app creation. And then we still have the Power Apps. I don't want to call it the helper, Power Apps ideas. So you can begin to search that to, help you build out your formulas. And then there's also, ask it things like, so I was asking it like, oh, I have date fields. Can you show this the date only on the date fields? And then you can give you some information on how to configure that. So it was cool. It's on the right track, but I wouldn't call this a version 1. This is like still a beta preview. And the other thing, kind of concerned of, is it making decisions that might not be the best way to do something? Or you might kind of question the logic. Is this the best way? Or, is there a better way? Or could there, yes, you can learn from it. But I think as a Power Platform solution architect or a maker, you still need to know how these things work. And you still have the ability to go in and make your own adjustments. But I don't want to, I don't want people seeing this as a crutch either.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
make
that was
stupid
my experience.
decisions all the time as well. I mean, it's not better than me, right? And from what I've heard about AI in general as well is that the answers you'll get from OpenAI or ChatGPT is, for someone who doesn't know the field, will sound and look very accurate, but from an expert's perspective will be not sufficient and in most cases wrong. So it's kind of an acknowledging how perfect it could be and how perfect it should be. So if you're new to this, then it should give you a starting point or a draft or something to work from. But if you're an expert, it shouldn't be able to replace you, kind of a thing. So if you look at it from that perspective, I'm onboarding students this year. I feel like Copilot is the perfect buddy to have alongside you when you're learning the tool. It will not make more mistakes than I think you would do on your own when you're starting up, but it will give you a starting point and not having to start from blank. And I think that also talks to Microsoft 365 Copilot as well, when you can draft in Word, and you can have it create your PowerPoint presentations for you and answer emails. Sure, and it's a starting point. It's not supposed to be the perfect finished email. It's supposed to help you get over the writer's block or create better looking PowerPoint presentations than you could do on your own. But the content, you still have to own that. And that's why also I like that in the announcements and in the videos, they were always very particular about it's not supposed to be what you just press send and send it away. You should look and edit and review and approve before you send it off. It's and it goes for the Power Platform Copilot as well, I think. And from what you're describing, I don't really see how this is an improvement when you know that we've had expressions. So the ideas where you use a Figma file, for instance, or you write something on a piece of paper and you take a photo of it and you upload it into Canvas Apps Designer, and it will automatically create that Canvas app for you. And also, from my experience, it will also create the tables if you wanted to. So if it's a registration form and you have some columns in there, and it will ask you, do you want to connect to an existing table or do you want to create a new table for this? And I would say create a new table. I would call it events, and it would automatically create those columns and that table for me and connect it to the form once it created the app with the experience that I had on my design. What do you think? Is it, what from your experience going through this preview? Is it an enhancement of that, or is it much the same?
Well, good question. It's an enhancement. It's another way. It's not replacing any of those tools. If anything, it's just another tool in the toolbox when you're building apps. And to me, the what I'm excited about is taking away the tediousness of building apps. We have these great ideas, but I have to add 20 fields to this table. Well, now that's going to be sped up. I have to create a bunch of forms. That's going to be sped up. And then once we have that, I think that framework or that scaffolding, that's when we can start doing the fun stuff and kind of drilling down where we want to be able to press this button and have it do these things. And even pressing that button, we can have it help us kind of work through that code a little bit versus trying to kind of piece it together where sometimes all you're doing on a button is say, hey, show hello world. And then you slowly iterate from there, where this is a different way of doing it, where you can actually put together some rudimentary steps and you're going back and tweaking it. So I think if anything, we're going to be more of I wouldn't call us more tweakers or tinkerers. This hopefully it's just going to change the mindset a little bit. But at the end of the day, I still think you still need to know the fundamentals of how an app works and how it's pieced together. And the AI is going to help you learn and sharpen those skills, but it's not going to replace them.
Yeah, totally agree.
That's
Absolutely. And from actually for Power Automate, I tried it, and it gets you to a point where you have your connectors but it's not very useful for advanced flows. And it's not giving me more that I could have gotten from a starter template in my view. So it's choosing the right template, choosing the right trigger, and then you're kind of on your own, except for formatting or so those kind of thing, right? So as you were saying, that's what I've been using it for as well, the helper along the way. The Copilot is for date or value formatting is what I mostly use it for. So maybe it's me not diving deeply enough into it just yet, or maybe it's a little immature and we're just seeing the start of it, which I think is the case. But I actually also see this as a way, like Microsoft saying, do more with less. Stop a way to not having to do those things or put students on the tasks of doing the things that we find tedious and get more stuff done in a shorter amount of time. And that being said, though, to Power Platform, of course, it's not going to replace any developers just yet. We have a lot of work ahead of us. I think for productivity, that's where I'm actually most excited about AI as well. Microsoft 365 and the emails and the PowerPoint presentations and all the things that it can do for me in terms of summarizing big Excel spreadsheets and learning from the data that it sees. That's what gets me excited about AI actually right now, not the Copilot in Power Platform, unfortunately, not just yet.
Yeah, it's like everything. It's early days. What I liked about some of those Microsoft 365, the one in Teams, like I find Teams is just it's a fire hose of information, and you get a lot of emails on different meetings and things. If it can go through and summarize some of those things and pull out the bullet points, that saves me from a productivity standpoint going through 20 emails, trying to get the gist of the conversation, trying to see what decisions were made, trying to see what I'm responsible for, because sometimes it's like, why isn't this done? Like, what do you mean? What was I supposed to do something? Oh yeah, we mentioned this in this email that was, 5 things down the thread. So
Yeah.
that if AI can help with that, that's awesome.
But it's scary as well, though. I mean, just this week, I had a meeting, press record, and it transcripts everything that I say, of course, and it understands Norwegian now. And there's a very short space between my head and my mouth. So I have a habit of saying things that I really don't think about. And so for me, it's kind of terrifying. So it's going to be not only recorded, it's going to be transcribed, and someone's going to be able to pick out the most essential stuff. I mean, for me also, I don't know. Something about it makes me, crunch a little as well.
Yeah, I think there are definitely there's pieces of anxiety that are going to creep up with this. I think we just have to go through with a growth mindset and open mind and use the tools for what they are. Also recognize their limitations as well, because I think that's where we're not hearing a lot about. I mean, everybody's raw Copilot, but there is some, there's some reality there. Like, yeah, there's still going to be work, or it's going to shift work as well. So maybe I'm not spending an hour building a table, but instead I might be spending an hour tweaking a table that I might not have spent before because I built it myself from scratch.
Exactly.
And that's where we're going to have to see some of the balance kind of work itself out. It's very much like we talked about getting a junior dev to do stuff. Some juniors that I've hired in the past, you give them something and they come back with as good or better than what I could have done. And then other ones I'm like, and going back to like, okay, good attempt. Here's where here's an opportunity for you to learn, but then I'll spend more time. I hate to say it, more time fixing what they did to get to where I want it to be. And I think AI might sort of fall somewhere in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably fall just in between those. Yeah, definitely. And we will probably
But
hear more about this and a lot of other announcements around this on Business Applications Launch event that is coming up on April 4th, or MS BizApps launch event that we call it in the BizApps community. So if you haven't signed up for that, it's still possible to sign up for it. It's a digital event. It starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and I really highly recommend. So MS Biz Apps is one of those events where I usually just take the day and dive right in, headphones on social media. Just I love those events. it always brings me up on everything that's new.
Just like this podcast.
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right. So I think that's it for now. That's all we have time for.
Yeah. So I think we both have busy work weeks ahead. And of course, I'll be back here in 2 weeks for our next episode.
Absolutely.
Where we'll probably talk about GTP 5 and 6 and
how we
co-pilots
can go on a long vacation and have AI take over our jobs. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast. This is your host, Ulrika Åkerbeck and Nick Dolman. Please follow us on socials, and except for TikTok, of course, because Nick can't dance and I am too old. Please send us an email at hello@powerplatformboost.com if you have anything to share with us. And we'll see you next time for a timely boost of Power Platform news.